So I don't know about you, but I have circumstances in my life that I have been praying about and waiting on God to do something about, and praying about and waiting and praying and waiting and wondering if there's ever going to be any kind of a change. And that kind of circumstance can cause despair. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today because I'm sure I'm not alone, but also because it comes up in the passage that we're dealing with today. So I'd like you to think about maybe that circumstance that's in your life, that's breaking your heart and making you wonder why God isn't intervening. Jesus himself had a situation like that. And he was coming to the place in this passage where he's going to die. We're now getting within months of him dying. And his 11th hour is coming. And it reminds me of that song from Jars of Clay called The 11th Hour. And I don't know the words exactly, but the chorus says, "Rescue me. I'm giving up the chance for you to blow my mind. The 11th hour is quickly passing by, and I'm almost out of time. But I know that you will rescue me when I think I am out of time." And so that situation is what we experience. That is what Mary and Martha and Lazarus were experiencing. And that is what Jesus himself was experiencing. Does anybody recognize this picture at all? I'm an archaeology buff. I love the Biblical Archaeology magazine. And this is a place that was recently discovered within the last 20 years. This is definitively, absolutely the place where Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. So, back in the day, it had a place a pool where you could be baptized, and then as, of course, the Christians became confident that that was the place, they began to build churches around it. People would go to that place and be baptized themselves in the same river that Jesus himself was baptized. And today, you can go there and be baptized if you want to. You can bring a little vial and pick up the murky Jordan River water and bring it home as holy water, whatever you want. The reason it's important is because this is where it all began. And we all have our own starting points in faith and in life. And sometimes it's helpful for us to uncover those starting points. Jesus himself had to go back to the place where it all began. If we read in verse 39 of chapter 10, Jesus he was almost stoned. And the people were ready to kill him right then and there. But he escaped out of their hand. It says, "Therefore they sought again to seize him. But he escaped out of their hand, and he went away again beyond the Jordan to the place where John was baptizing at first. And there he stayed." So we all have our happy place, don't we? A place that brings us joy. And oftentimes that place of joy is the place where things first began. When marriages are having trouble, sometimes it is helpful to just pull out pictures of the wedding photos, right? Or the video. Sometimes we need to go to a conference, and in that conference they may help us to recall what attracted you to one another. Why do you love one another? And then once you rediscover those things, it renews your love for right now and helps you to bring yourself back. I do that sometimes as a pastor. Now, I've only been a pastor for a few years. And I've been a chaplain for even less than that. But my very first sermon was a doozy. And it wasn't a bad sermon necessarily, but the circumstance was unusual. I was doing pulpit supply and actually candidating for a church in Edgar. And I wanted to really wow them because they're used to children's sermons and the like. So I had this great production in place. And I pulled up all the stops, and I had the children come forward. And the passage was on Jesus being at the home of Simon and having a big party around him. And so I was going to have a party. And so I brought out the party hats and the birthday, all the paraphernalia. Well, and it really went well until it was time for me to preach to the adults, and I couldn't get the party hat off. And it was stuck on the entire time that I was preaching. And it was very painful at the moment, but now I can laugh about it. And somebody actually sent me a letter earlier this year, and in that letter she recalled that very first Sunday, and she remarked how that blessed her, that I actually had the confidence to do something like that. And of course, that wasn't my last time at that church. It was merely the first. I was there for almost a year. But it was a way of, for me, and I'm thankful for that letter, because when things aren't going so well, it reminds me that things aren't so bad, and even those things that we think are going wrong end up being a blessing to others. So it is important for us to return to our place, our first place. If you have a relationship with God and Jesus Christ, where you actually asked Him into your heart and you have become a new creature in Christ, it's helpful to be reminded of that and to maybe celebrate the anniversary of that decision. Or if you can't remember that kind of decision because it was so long ago, maybe when you were a child, maybe those stories that spoke to you as a child can speak to you again. Uncover those things. Return to a place of refreshing when life is getting to a head. That's what Jesus did. He returned to a place of refreshing for him. Once he was there, he experienced renewal. It says that many came to him and they said, "John performed no sign, but all the things that John spoke about this man were true, and many believed in him there." So if you have that place of refreshing that you can go to, and you go to it, I'm sure that you will find that refreshing. You'll find that renewed vision. You'll find that sense that life really is worth it. When we go back to Chicago, my son Jacob just loves it. He just perks right up. Everything about it. He loves the traffic. He loves the huge buildings. He likes the smells. He likes the noise. All of those things that you probably hate about Chicago are things that he loves. And it's not because they're great in themselves. It's because, as a child, he was happy. And he loved life. And so when he goes back there, he finds that same sense of love, that same sense of drive, that same sense of purpose. So Jesus had been there, and I'm thinking he was there for a couple of months, and here's why. We know that he was almost stoned during the Hanukkah celebration, and we know that he was crucified during the Passover. And there's only about 2.5 months, 3 months between those. And so somewhere in there, Jesus is here receiving his refreshment. My guess is he got a taste of what was going to happen to him on the cross when they were about to stone him, and maybe it even overwhelmed him. It brought him to a place where he needed to refocus and say, yes, I am ready to move forward. I hope that wasn't blasphemy. Jesus is fully human. He felt the same things you and I feel. He was not a Superman per se. He was God and he was man. And in his humanity, I'm sure he experienced the same fears that you and I experience, yet without sin.